The day my father told me I would never run our family business was also the day I decided to take it from him. I remember standing in his mahogany-lined office, my MBA diploma still fresh in its frame, while he crushed 20 years of preparation with a single sentence. "Alyssa, sweetheart, you know this kind of responsibility belongs to your brother. I'm Alyssa Mason, and at 30 years old, I had just been reminded that being born female was my greatest sin. Dad, I've worked in every department since I was 16, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. I modernized our inventory system, brought in 3 major clients, and we're very grateful for your help," he interrupted, not even looking up from his computer screen. "But Landon will be taking over as CEO when I retire next year. It's tradition. It's how things work." The sunlight streaming through his corner office windows suddenly felt too bright, too harsh. I watched him continue typing, probably another email to the board about my brother's upcoming coronation as heir apparent. "Landon can barely read a financial statement," I said, my words sharp enough to finally make him look at me. "That's enough." He stood up, his 6'2" frame towering over his desk. "Your brother has been groomed for this position his entire life. He understands the big picture." I laughed, the sound bitter even to my own ears. "The big picture? Last month, he approved a merger that would have bankrupted us if I hadn't caught the hidden debt in their books." "You're being dramatic." He walked around his desk, placing his hands on my shoulders. "Look, you're excellent at the details, sweetheart. That's why you'll make a wonderful COO under your brother's leadership." I stepped back, shrugging off his touch. "Under Landon's leadership. He still calls me at midnight to explain basic profit margins." "Alyssa," his voice carried that warning tone I'd heard throughout my childhood. "This discussion is over. The board meets next week to confirm Landon's position. I expect you to support your brother." The familiar sting of tears threatened, but I refused to let them fall. "Not here, not in front of him. Mom would never have allowed this," I said quietly. His face hardened. "Your mother understands tradition. She knows her place, just as you should know yours." I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me at the door. "One more thing. Landon mentioned you've been meeting with Turner from the board. That stops now. Board relations are your brother's responsibility." I didn't respond, simply closed the door behind me with deliberate softness. Running into Landon in the hallway was the universe's idea of a cruel joke. "Hey sis." His perfect white teeth gleamed as he grinned. "Dad just told you the good news, right? Don't worry, I'll still let you handle all that boring numbers stuff." I forced a smile. "Congratulations, Landon. You must be thrilled." "Obviously. Though I gotta admit, some of these reports are giving me a headache. Mind taking a look at the quarterly projections later?" "Sure," I said, already walking away. "What are sisters for?" I made it to my office before my hands started shaking. Zara, my best friend and head of marketing, was waiting inside. "From your face, I'm guessing it went exactly as expected," she said, closing the door. I collapsed into my chair. Worse, he actually said I should know my place. "That prehistoric dinosaur." Zara perched on my desk. "Please tell me you're not giving up." "Giving up?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling to Turner's number. "No, I'm just getting started." "What are you thinking?" I looked up at her. 20 years of dismissed ideas and patronizing pats on the head crystallizing into perfect clarity. "I'm thinking it's time to show them exactly what the little princess can do." I pressed call. "Turner, it's Alyssa. Remember that discussion about modernizing the company? I'd like to explore that further. Dinner tonight." As I hung up, Zara was watching me with a mixture of concern and excitement. "You're going to war with your father, aren't you?" I opened my laptop, pulling up the company's shareholder agreement, the one I'd memorized years ago. "No, Zara, I'm going to save this company from my father's outdated thinking and my brother's incompetence." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "And if that means taking everything they think they own, well, that's just good business." "You're telling me Landon lost the Thompson account?" Zara nearly choked on her wine. We were sitting in my apartment, reviewing the documents I'd secretly copied from the company server. Lost is an understatement, I said, spreading the papers across my coffee table. He forgot to attend 3 consecutive meetings, then sent them a proposal meant for their biggest competitor. How is this not common knowledge? I took a sip of my wine. Because Dad's been covering for him. He quietly transferred $5 million from his personal account to keep Thompson from going public with the mistake. The city lights twinkled through my window as Zara processed this information. We'd been digging through company records for weeks, and each discovery was worse than the last. "Alyssa, this is huge," she said, picking up another document. "The board has no idea about any of this. Only Turner knows some of it. That's why he's been so receptive to meeting with me." I pulled out my phone, showing her the text thread. "He's worried about his investment. And he should be. These numbers are terrifying." Zara gestured at the spreadsheets. "Your brother's decisions have cost the company what? $30 million in the last year alone. 37.5. But who's counting?" I smiled grimly. "Dad's been moving money around, calling in favors, doing everything he can to hide Landon's mistakes." My phone buzzed. A message from Turner. "Just left the quarterly review. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Look at this." I showed Zara the message. Tomorrow might be exactly what we need. The quarterly review always puts Dad in a terrible mood because he has to explain away Landon's mess. Exactly. I started gathering the papers. And I happen to know that 3 board members are already questioning his leadership. Zara leaned back, studying me. "You've really thought this through, haven't you?" "I've had 20 years to think it through." I stood up, walking to my wall of certificates and awards, all gathering dust, while Landon sat in the CEO's chair in waiting. "But I need your help. Name it." "I need you to schedule a marketing presentation for next week. Make it big, all department heads, key stakeholders, everyone. And let me guess, Landon should present it." I grinned. "Now you're getting it." The next morning, I arrived at Turner's office early. He was already there, looking like he hadn't slept. "Have you seen these projections?" He shoved a folder across his desk before I could even sit down. "The ones showing we're headed for a 15% loss this quarter?" "Yes, I have." 15%? Turner laughed harshly. "Try 25. Your brother just approved an expansion project without running any feasibility studies." I kept my face neutral, though my heart was racing. "That's concerning." "Concerning. It's suicide." Turner ran a hand through his gray hair. "I've known your father for 20 years, Alyssa. He's a proud man. But this blind spot with Landon, it's going to destroy everything he built. Unless someone steps in," I said quietly. Turner's eyes snapped to mine. "You have a plan." It wasn't a question. "I have several, but I need allies on the board." "You have one," he said immediately. "What's your play?" I pulled out my own folder. "First, we need to get Landon to present the marketing strategy next week. When he crashes and burns, and he will, we'll have documented proof of his incompetence. Your father will try to cover it up. Not this time." I handed him another document, because while Landon's fumbling through the presentation, I'll be meeting with our biggest client, preventing them from jumping ship over the Thompson fiasco. Turner whistled low. "You knew about Thompson." "I know everything, Turner. I've been watching, learning, and preparing, while they've been dismissing me as the dutiful daughter." He studied me for a long moment. "You're nothing like your brother." "No," I agreed, standing up. "I'm much more dangerous." As I walked back to my office, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "Your father's in a mood. Says the quarterly review was rough. Maybe you could talk to Landon. Help him understand the numbers better." I typed back, "Of course, Mom. Happy to help my big brother." Zara was waiting in my office again. "Marketing presentation is set for next Thursday. All stakeholders confirmed." "Perfect." I sat down, pulling up my email. "And the client meeting?" "Scheduled for the exact same time. Your father will have to choose between watching his son fail or losing our biggest account." I started typing, a smile playing on my lips. Then let's make sure he chooses wrong. Alyssa, Zara's voice was serious. Are you sure you're ready for this? Once you start, there's no going back. I thought about my father's dismissive words, Landon's constant mistakes, and 20 years of being told to know my place. They made their choice, Zara. Now it's time to make mine. Sweetheart, we need to talk. My mother's voice caught me off guard. As I walked into my apartment, she was sitting on my couch, still in her tennis clothes, looking worried. Mom, how did you get in? I still have the spare key you gave me. She patted the space next to her. Sit down, please. I dropped my briefcase and joined her, already knowing what this was about. The marketing presentation was 2 days away. Turner came to see your father today, she said, confirming my suspicions. He mentioned some concerns about the company's direction. Did he? I kept my voice neutral. That's interesting. Alyssa. She turned to face me fully. What are you doing? I'm trying to save our company. By undermining your brother, she sighed. I know you're hurt about the CEO position. This isn't about being hurt, Mom. I stood up, pacing. Have you seen the numbers? Do you know what's really happening? Your father says everything is under control. Everything is not under control. I grabbed my briefcase, pulling out the documents I'd prepared. Look at these, really look. She took the papers hesitantly, her eyes widening as she read. This can't be right. 37 million in losses, all in the last year, all because of Landon's decisions. I sat back down. Dad's been covering it up, but we're running out of options. And money. Does Landon know about these numbers? Landon doesn't know what numbers are. The bitterness in my voice made her flinch. Last week, he asked me what EBITDA meant. He's been CEO in training for 5 years. Mom. My phone buzzed. A text from Turner. Emergency board meeting called for tomorrow. Your father knows something's up. Shit, I muttered, typing back quickly. Language, Mom said automatically, still staring at the papers. Why didn't you come to me with this sooner? Would it have made a difference? You've never stood up to Dad before. The hurt in her eyes made me regret the words immediately. That's not fair, Alyssa. I've always supported you. By staying silent when he dismissed me, by watching him hand everything to Landon, despite knowing he wasn't ready. I taught you to be strong, she said quietly. To be smarter than them all. What do you think those late-night math lessons were about? Those extra business classes I drove you to? I stopped, really looking at my mother for the first time in years. The tennis outfit suddenly seemed like armor. Her way of playing the perfect corporate wife while secretly preparing her daughter for war. My phone buzzed again. Zara, this time. Landon's asking for help with the marketing presentation. What should I tell him? I have to go, I said, standing up. There's a lot to prepare for tomorrow. Alyssa. Mom stood too, holding the documents. Can I keep these? Why? Because it's time I had a talk with your father. I froze. Mom, don't. Not yet, please. She smiled. And for a moment, I saw the steel beneath her perfect makeup. I've been quiet for 30 years, watching him underestimate you. Maybe it's time he understood what that's cost him. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Turner. Your father's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, he said without preamble. I know. What's our play? We move faster. I've convinced 2 more board members to hear you out. Dinner tonight. My house. Can you make it? I looked at my mother, still holding the evidence of her son's incompetence. I'll be there. And Turner, I'm bringing someone with me. After I hung up, Mom raised an eyebrow. Dinner with Turner and 2 other board members. Want to show them what you taught me about numbers? She smiled, tucking the documents into her tennis bag. Let me change first. Can't take down the patriarchy in tennis whites. As we headed out, my phone lit up with a message from Landon. Hey sis, really need your help with this presentation. Dad's writing me hard about it. Coffee tomorrow. I showed Mom the message. What would you do? She adjusted her designer sunglasses. Every inch the corporate wife she'd pretended to be for decades. I'd give him exactly what he wants, help him prepare, and then I'd watch him fall on his own sword. She linked her arm through mine. Now, let's go show Turner what the Mason women are really capable of. For the first time since this started, I felt truly confident. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for every time my mother had been silenced, every time she'd watched her daughter being overlooked. It was time to show them all what we could do. You want me to what? Landon stared at me across the coffee shop table, his designer suit wrinkled from a night of stress drinking. Just read exactly what I've prepared, I said, sliding the marketing presentation notes toward him. Word for word, don't try to improvise. But shouldn't I understand what I'm saying? He ran his hands through his disheveled hair. Dad's going to ask questions. Trust me, this version is simplified enough that you'll be able to answer anything they throw at you. I took a sip of my coffee, hiding my smile. The presentation I'd prepared was a masterpiece of misdirection, accurate enough to avoid suspicion, but structured to expose every one of his weaknesses. I don't know, sis. He flipped through the pages. Some of these numbers look weird. Those are the same numbers you approved last quarter, I said sweetly. Remember the Anderson project? He paled slightly. Oh, right. That one. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. Your father's been up all night reviewing the documents I showed him. He's finally asking the right questions. Look, I said to Landon. The presentation is in 3 hours. Just memorize the key points I highlighted. You'll be fine. You're the best, Alyssa. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I don't know what I'd do without you. For a moment I felt a twinge of guilt behind the entitlement and incompetence. He was still my brother, the same boy who defended me from bullies in school. Then my phone buzzed again. Turner, board members in place. Your mother's evidence was compelling. We're ready. The guilt evaporated. I have to go, I told Landon. Last-minute client meeting. Wait, you're not coming to my presentation? Can't reschedule this one, but you've got this. I stood up, gathering my things. Just remember, stick to the script. I was halfway to the door when he called out. Hey, Alyssa, I know you wanted the CEO position. I'm sorry it worked out this way. I turned back. No, Landon. You're not sorry yet, but you will be. The client meeting was at a restaurant across town. As I walked in, Zara was already there, tablet in hand. Live streaming the presentation, she whispered as I sat down. You're going to want to see this. How's he doing? He's sweating through his shirt, and he hasn't even started yet. Our actual client, Mrs. Chen, arrived right on schedule. Alyssa, dear, I hope you have good news about our concerns. Mrs. Chen, I have a complete restructuring proposal that will address every issue. I pulled out my laptop. And I think you'll be particularly interested in our new direction. As I walked her through the plans I'd spent months preparing, Zara kept me updated with silent text messages. Landon just called EBITDA, that earnings thing. Your dad looks like he's having a stroke. Turner just asked about the Thompson account. Oh God, Landon's improvising. By the time Mrs. Chen was signing the revised contract, securing her company's continued partnership, worth $50 million annually, Zara's messages had turned frantic. He just admitted to the Anderson losses. Board members requesting emergency session. Your dad left the room. This is amazing. Thank you for your confidence in us, I told Mrs. Chen as we shook hands. I promise you won't regret this decision. After she left, Zara showed me the video feed. Landon was standing at the front of the boardroom. His presentation slides a mess of contradicting numbers behind him. How bad was it? I asked. He accidentally revealed 3 covered-up losses, admitted to never reading the quarterly reports, and suggested we do that Bitcoin thing to recover funds. My phone rang. Dad, where are you? He demanded without greeting. Saving our biggest client relationship, I replied calmly. Someone had to. Get to my office, now. He hung up. Zara grabbed my arm as I stood. Are you ready for this? I checked my phone. New messages from Turner and 2 other board members, all confirming their support. A final text from Mom. I'm in your father's office. Don't worry, I'm not staying quiet this time. Ready? I smiled at Zara. I've been ready my whole life. As I walked toward the elevator, My phone buzzed one last time. Landon, I really messed up, sis. Please help. I typed back, sorry, brother. Some things you have to handle on your own. The elevator doors opened to the executive floor. Through the glass walls, I could see Dad pacing in his office, Mom sitting calmly in one of his leather chairs, and Turner standing with several board members in the hallway. It was time to take everything they never thought I deserved. How long have you been planning this? Dad's voice was deadly quiet as I entered his office. Mom sat perfectly straight in her chair, while Turner and 3 other board members lined the wall. Planning what? I kept my voice innocent. Saving our biggest client, while Landon destroyed our company's reputation. About 3 hours. Don't play games with me. He slammed a folder onto his desk. Turner tells me you've been meeting with board members for months. Your mother showed me documents I never knew existed. What exactly are you trying to accomplish? I'm trying to save our company. I moved to the center of the room. Something you failed to do by protecting Landon. Your brother just cost us another $15 million, Turner interrupted. In one presentation. Dad's face reddened. He was nervous, unprepared. He's been unprepared for 5 years, Mom said quietly. And you've been covering for him. Gemma, stay out of this. No. Mom stood up, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. I won't stay out of it. Not anymore. My phone buzzed. Landon. Dad's going to kill me. Can you come to my office? Alyssa. Dad's voice drew my attention back. Whatever you think you're doing, stop now. This is still my company. Actually, Turner stepped forward. According to these shareholding documents, that's debatable. Dad froze. What? Over the past 6 months, I said, I've been buying shares, quietly, through various channels, and I've secured voting agreements with several key stakeholders. That's impossible. The shares aren't public. No, but they were available through the shell companies you created to hide Landon's mistakes. I smiled. Did you really think I wouldn't find them? A knock at the door interrupted us. Landon stood there looking devastated. Dad, I can explain? Not now, Dad snapped. Yes, now. I opened the door wider. Come in, Landon. You should hear this too. He shuffled in, avoiding everyone's eyes. Alyssa, I'm so sorry. I tried to follow your notes, but you didn't understand them, I finished. Just like you don't understand basic business operations, or profit margins, or why losing $37 million in a year is bad. $37 million. Landon looked at Dad. I thought you said it was only 10. It's handled, Dad said through gritted teeth. No, it's not. Turner handed out documents to the other board members. These losses are unsustainable. The company needs new leadership. And let me guess, Dad turned to me. You think it should be you? I don't think it should be me, I said. I know it has to be me. Because while you were grooming your son to fail, I was actually learning how to run this company. Landon sank into a chair. Is that why you helped me with the presentation? To make me fail? For the first time, my resolve wavered. No, I gave you a chance to prove yourself. You failed all on your own. Enough. Dad's voice boomed. This ends now. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. Already done, Turner said. We voted an hour ago. Pending shareholder approval, Alyssa will be appointed interim CEO, effective immediately. The silence was deafening. You can't do this, Dad whispered. Actually, we can. Mom stood up, walking to my side, and we did. Mom? Landon's voice cracked. You knew about this? I knew your sister was the right choice from the beginning. She touched my shoulder. I just waited too long to say it. My phone buzzed again. Zara. Press release is ready. Just say when. Dad, I said softly. You have 2 choices. Fight this and watch our stock price plummet when the truth about Landon's mistakes goes public. Or step down gracefully and let me fix this. He stared at me for a long moment, seeing me, really seeing me, perhaps for the first time. You planned everything, he said slowly. The presentation, the client meeting, the share purchases. Yes, you're more capable than I ever gave you credit for. Yes. He looked at Landon, then at Mom, then back to me. If I agree to this, what happens to your brother? That depends on him. I turned to Landon. You can stay and learn the business properly, from the ground up. No shortcuts, no covers, no excuses. Or you can leave with a generous severance package. Landon stood up shakily. I need some time to think. Take all the time you need, I said. But the company can't wait. Dad? The room held its breath as my father slowly sank into his chair. He looked suddenly old, defeated. Do what you need to do, he said finally. I pulled out my phone, typing quickly to Zara. Release it. As notifications started flooding everyone's phones, announcing the leadership change, I caught my mother's eye. She was smiling, proud and sad all at once. Congratulations, CEO Mason, Turner said formally. I looked around the room, at my broken brother, my defeated father, and the board members who had finally seen my worth. The victory felt different than I'd imagined, heavier, more complicated, but it was mine. The board expects a full recovery plan by Monday, Turner said, standing in my new office, my father's old office. They're nervous about the market reaction. The market's already reacting. Zara pointed to her tablet. Stocks up 12% since the announcement. It had been 3 days since the takeover, 3 days of endless meetings, press releases, and damage control. My father hadn't returned my calls. What about the Thompson account? I asked, scanning through emails. Secured, Zara confirmed. They're actually increasing their investment now that they know you're in charge. My phone buzzed. Landon. Can we talk, please? I hadn't seen my brother since that day in Dad's office. He'd cleaned out his desk and disappeared without a word. Alyssa, Turner's voice pulled me back. About your father's retirement package. Give him whatever he wants, I said quickly. Same for Landon, if he decides to leave permanently. That's generous. Turner raised an eyebrow. It's smart, I corrected. The last thing we need is family drama in the press. A knock at the door interrupted us. Mom stood there, looking uncertain. Can we have a minute? She asked. Turner and Zara excused themselves, leaving me alone with my mother for the first time since everything happened. Your father's drinking again, she said without preamble. Is he at least drinking the good stuff? He can afford it with the retirement package. Alyssa, she sat down across from me. This isn't what I wanted. No? I leaned back in my chair, his chair. What did you want, Mom? For me to stay quiet? Keep helping Landon while he ran this company into the ground. I wanted my family whole. Our family hasn't been whole since Dad decided I wasn't good enough because I was born a girl. She flinched. He loves you. He loves the idea of me. The dutiful daughter helping her brother succeed. I stood up, walking to the window. He never loved who I actually am. And who are you? Someone better at this than he ever was. My phone buzzed again. Landon. I'm in the lobby. 5 minutes. Your brother's downstairs, Mom said, reading the message over my shoulder. Are you going to see him? I hesitated. Should I? He's still your brother. She touched my arm gently. And he's hurting. Fine. I grabbed my jacket. But you're coming with me. We found Landon sitting in the lobby, looking lost in jeans and a t-shirt, a far cry from his usual suits. Hey sis, he said quietly. Mom. You look terrible, I said, sitting beside him. Yeah, well, unemployment will do that to you. He attempted a smile. Though I guess that's up to you now, isn't it? Have you made a decision about my offer? He nodded slowly. I want to stay. Learn properly this time. Landon. No, listen. He turned to face me fully. You were right. About everything. I never earned any of this. Dad just handed it to me, and I let him, because it was easier than admitting I wasn't ready. Mom sat on his other side, taking his hand. But watching you these past few days, he continued, seeing how you handle everything, I want to learn that, for real this time. My phone buzzed. Turner. Singapore office, calling about urgent restructuring. If I let you stay, I said carefully. You start at the bottom, no special treatment, no shortcuts. I know. And Dad can't know, not yet. He'll try to interfere. Landon nodded. He's not speaking to me anyway. He'll come around, Mom said softly. He just needs time. My phone buzzed again. Zara, crisis in marketing. Need you ASAP. I stood up. Entry-level position opens in accounts next week. The pay is terrible, the hours are worse, and you'll report to someone 5 years younger than you. I'll take it, Landon said immediately. Good. I checked my phone again. I have to go, real CEO work to do. Alyssa, he called as I turned to leave. I'm sorry for everything. I looked at him, my big brother, finally humbled, finally ready to learn. Prove it, I said. Show up Monday, do the work, earn your place. As I headed back to my office, Mom caught up with me at the elevator. That was kind of you, she said. That was business, I corrected. He's smart when he tries. The company can use that. She smiled knowingly. Whatever you say, dear. My phone buzzed one final time. Dad, we need to talk. I showed Mom the message. Are you ready for that conversation? She asked. The elevator doors opened to the executive floor. My floor now. He wasn't ready for me, I said, stepping in. Now he'll have to be. The restaurant was Dad's choice, the same steakhouse where he'd celebrated every major company milestone for 30 years. He was already seated when I arrived, nursing what looked like his second scotch. You're late, he said as I sat down. Actually, I'm right on time. You're early. He looked older than I remembered, though it had only been 2 weeks since the takeover. His usual perfectly pressed suit seemed to hang on him. I saw the quarterly projections, he said, not meeting my eyes. Stocks up 18%. 22 as of this morning. I ordered a water when the waiter approached. The Singapore restructuring is already paying off. You fired half the management team there. I replaced them with people who actually know what they're doing. He took another sip of scotch. Like you replaced me. You retired, Dad. Remember, that's what the press release said. Because you gave me no choice. His hand tightened around the glass. You went behind my back, conspired with the board, turned your mother against me. Mom wasn't turned against you, I interrupted. She finally stopped covering for you. I built that company from nothing. And I saved it from your pride. I leaned forward. Did you even read the reports Mom showed you? Did you see how close we were to bankruptcy? Landon just needed time. Landon needed a father, not an enabler. I softened my tone. He's doing better now, you know. His head snapped up. You've seen him? He started in accounts last week. Entry level, no special treatment. My son, working entry level? He laughed bitterly. That must make you happy. What would make me happy is if my father could admit he was wrong. The waiter returned. Dad ordered another scotch. I still hadn't touched my water. You want me to admit I was wrong? He finally looked at me directly. Fine, I was wrong. I underestimated you. Is that what you want to hear? I want to hear that you're sorry, not for underestimating me, but for never giving me a chance. A chance? His voice rose. I gave you everything. The best schools, any position you wanted in the company. Except the one I earned. I kept my voice steady. Every position except CEO, because that was for your son. It's tradition. It's sexism, Dad. Plain and simple. The new scotch arrived. He stared into it like it held answers. Your mother says you're doing well, he said finally. Says the employees respect you. They respect results. Something Landon never delivered. Don't. His voice cracked. Don't talk about your brother like that. Why not? It's the truth. The truth you never wanted to see. My phone buzzed. Landon. Finished my first financial report. Boss says it doesn't completely suck. I showed Dad the message. He's learning, really learning, for the first time. Because you forced him to. Because I gave him what you never did, the chance to earn his place. Dad was quiet for a long moment. The board says you're implementing a 5-year growth plan. Would you like to hear about it? Would it matter what I think? It always mattered, Dad. I felt tears threatening, but pushed them back. That's why it hurt so much when you wouldn't listen. He finished his scotch, then pushed the glass away. Tell me about the plan. For the next hour, I walked him through everything. The restructuring, the new markets, the technology upgrades. He listened without interrupting, asking occasional questions that showed he was actually paying attention. It's ambitious, he said when I finished. It's necessary. And you're sure you can handle it? I've been handling it my whole life. You just never noticed. He reached for his wallet, but I stopped him. Company dinner, I said. I'm CEO now, remember. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Your mother wants us all for dinner on Sunday. You, me, Landon. Will you be sober? He flinched. I deserve that. Yes, you do. I stood up. Tell Mom I'll be there. But Dad? If you ever try to undermine me at the company, if you interfere with Landon's progress, or cause problems with the board, you'll what? Fire me again? No. I put on my coat. I'll release the real numbers from Landon's tenure, all of them. He nodded slowly. You really are better at this than I was. I know. I turned to leave, then stopped. Sunday dinner. Bring wine, not scotch. And Dad. Yes? It's not too late to be the father I needed. Just try to see me. Really see me. As I walked out into the night, my phone buzzed one last time. Mom, your father's crying. Whatever you said, thank you. I didn't respond. Some conversations needed to happen in person, over family dinner, with wine instead of scotch. It was a start, and that concludes our annual shareholders meeting, I said, closing my laptop, as applause filled the conference room. Thank you all for your continued trust and support. As people filed out, Turner caught my eye and grinned. We'd just announced record profits, and the energy in the room was electric. Nice work, boss, Zara whispered, gathering her papers. Though you forgot to mention one thing. What's that? That your brother's promotion goes into effect tomorrow. I smiled, watching Landon across the room. He was explaining something to a group of investors. His confidence no longer fake bravado, but earned through 2 years of hard work. Ms. Mason, my assistant, appeared at my elbow. Your father's waiting in your office. I found him standing at my window, looking out at the city skyline. Quite a meeting, he said without turning around. Did you doubt it would be? Not anymore. He faced me, and I noticed he'd lost the haunted look he'd carried since stepping down. Landon tells me you're promoting him to department head. He earned it. I sat at my desk, worked his way up from the bottom, just like he promised. Unlike how I handed it to him before. Dad. No, let me finish. He sat down across from me. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About traditions, about what I thought was right. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. I want you to have this. Inside was a letter, dated 20 years ago. My mother's handwriting. Mom wrote this? The day you graduated high school. She told me to give it to you when I finally understood what I'd been too blind to see. I unfolded the paper carefully. My dearest Alyssa, if you're reading this, your father has finally realized what I've always known. That you were born to lead. Your strength isn't just in your mind, but in your heart. You'll change not just the company, but the way people think about power and capability. I'm preparing you the only way I know how. Teaching you to be smarter, stronger, more resilient than anyone expects. One day, you'll understand why. All my love, Mom. She knew, I whispered. All along, she knew this would happen. She was always the smartest one in the family. Dad smiled sadly. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what she saw. A knock at the door interrupted us. Landon poked his head in. Sorry, but we need you both in the boardroom. Mom's here with some kind of announcement. We found Mom standing at the head of the table, looking nervous, but determined. I've made a decision, she said as we sat down. I'm starting a foundation for women in business leadership. What? Dad and I spoke simultaneously. All those years of watching you fight for recognition, Alyssa. It made me realize how many other women face the same battle. She handed out prospectus papers. I want to provide mentorship, funding, support, Everything I wished I could have given you openly, Mom. I started reading the proposal. It was comprehensive, brilliant even. How long have you been planning this? Since the day you took over. She smiled. I thought maybe you'd consider being on the board of directors, both of you. She looked at Dad and me. Dad picked up the papers, his hands shaking slightly. You did this all on your own. Just like our daughter built her own path. Mom's voice was gentle but firm. It's time for more than just tradition, don't you think? The room was quiet as Dad read. Finally, he looked up at Mom, then at me. Where do I sign? Landon cleared his throat. What about me? You'll be too busy running your department, I said. Unless you don't want the promotion? Are you kidding? I earned that promotion fair and square. He grinned. Just like you earned all of this. My phone buzzed. Turner. Stock just hit another record high. Whatever's happening in that boardroom, keep it going. I looked around the table, at my mother, finally claiming her own power, at my father, learning to see beyond his prejudices, at my brother, who had found his true strength in starting over. Well, I said, I think we have some papers to sign. And some champagne to drink, Mom added. Just champagne? Dad asked, and we all tensed until we saw his smile. I thought this called for the good stuff, the scotch I've been saving. You're drinking again? I asked sharply. No. He pulled out his phone, showing us the AA chip he'd earned. But I saved one bottle, for the day I finally got it right with my family. As we walked to his old office where the bottle waited, I felt Mom slip her hand into mine. You did it, she whispered. We did it, I corrected. All of us. The scotch, when we finally opened it, tasted like forgiveness, like family, like victory.